I shared basically that it's great now, and we don't know about tomorrow's story around the consumer influence. And I think what that means, talking about my clients, is you need to be extremely flexible because you will not be successful to increase your efforts to predict the future. I don't think you can say, let's just really try to understand what happens in 2018, 19, or 20. No. Instead, put your effort in. If something happens, how can I basically change? How can I ramp up my capacity if the trend hits that I can basically do so much? How can I work with contract manufacturing that can really pump up the volume when the growth comes, that I'm not out of stock? That's what basically the company should focus on, to be able to basically take both ways, up and down, being able to react to trends, not trying to predict the trends, because it will be impossible to do so. Health conscious, I think the point there is, actually I didn't show that chart, but there's a chart with like 45% or so of the Chinese say they prefer to buy organic food. The percent of food in China which is organic is 0, just to be clear, and 0. So 45% prefers to eat something which doesn't exist, which, by the way, is also not totally a China phenomenon. I think we can tell you about organic food, the whole story, what happens in the US or in Europe. But why I'm bringing that up here now is, again, the company needs to play with the perception. And need to say, how can we basically make a product which is perceived to be healthy? Ideally, by the way, not to manipulate, but ideally just basically having both together, right? I think there is a agenda to basically turn into a healthier country, but how can you also at the same time create the perception that it is? And actually, before I go on to the other point, let me name one example. You may have seen a product, which is a Coca-Cola product called Schweppes Plus C. It's a yellow can, which has a big C on it, where I think you were the one earlier saying nutrition is something good. It actually sells very well. It came out of nothing. It's doing very well. Talking about calorie intake, though, this product has more calories than Coca-Cola. It has more calories than a can of beer. But it does actually look very healthy. So we actually, Jonathan will know, we have it actually in the McKinsey office as well. And you need to admit, this has a yellow, fresh color and has a big C, which people think, well, it must be something with vitamins. It also does work, actually, with me. So it does give a good effect. But I don't think that's the solution, right? Because ultimately, there will be more and more transparency coming up. But I think to find the right balance between creating the right perception of health, potentially basically bringing in the safety element to that, and at the same time, being able to actually have a sustainable improvement in health in the food. Post-90s, I've been a bit short on that, but obviously there will be a lot around digital, right? The way how to engage, that's the way how they buy. I think we touched it when we talked about the brand behaviors. So I think that's the way to engage with the consumers, particularly with the young generation. And also there are quite a few different segments among the post-90s. And then how to track them separately. And I think the last one on the global versus foreign brands, I think the global brands needs to start worrying that they are at a disadvantage because they're no longer basically what the Chinese consumer want. They should just admit it's just about basically the product and the communication of the product, and it's not about foreign versus Chinese. So the foreign companies really need to think about how can they basically change that their product is not the same value or not perceived to be the same value when it comes to the specification, the communication, and the price compared to a product of a Chinese company. And for the local companies, I was joking earlier about that importing from outside, like a Chinese company is building a factory in France and importing. I don't think that's necessarily the solution. I think the solution will need to be, how can we overcome the perception that a cosmetics product which is done in France is better than a cosmetics product done in China? And I think there may be still a journey to go. But China has capabilities to make great products, and China can also build basically capabilities to have great safety. And I think once that is the case, then we will also see a shift in that respect. So I think that's the things.